Get in on the action this season with Underdog's Pick'em game. Select higher or lower between 2 and 8 players and compete for up to 325 times your entry. Use code DIRECTOR when signing up to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick. Yo to Bowl fam, it's the Director. Chargers fans, we got a big show for you guys today. One of my favorite videos to do every single season. This is the plan, right? This is going in, deciding what I would do if I were GM, if I were in charge of the Chargers. All the moves from free agency, which is coming up on Monday, through trades, cuts, the draft even. We're going to get into a few rounds of that in today's video. The first video that I do any sort of mock drafting is going to be today, man. What would the Director do in the driver's chair? And what are the, I would say this for the most part is pretty likely to. I don't think it was too far stretch of the imagination for any one of these moves to be made realistically this offseason. Again, starting on Monday, we're getting in just under the wire. Of course, we were moving. We're all settled in now. Wanted to get this video out before the official free agency started, kicking off on Monday, where players are going to start, verbally agreeing to contracts with their new teams. It's going to be an exciting time, man. And like I said in this tweet, I'm so pumped for Monday. I have a feeling it's going to get wild. This is going to be a big offseason, man. The Chargers finally have money. We got Joe Ortiz, who's a mastermind, a master chef in the kitchen, cooking up, what was an awesome offseason last year. Should be a great follow-up season this year as they continue to build the Jim Harbaugh Chargers. Let's freaking go, man. It's going to be an awesome video. Cannot wait to get into it. Before we do kick things off, man, shout out to the sponsor, Underdog. Use code DIRECTOR to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Newcomers, take a look at the offer on screen. Definitely a great way to support my platform. Have some fun along the way. Before we do kick off, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. Small amount of time you guys take to the like, sub, bell notification. Helps me out a lot. Let's get into this awesome video, man. So excited. Lights, camera, action.
Who's got it better than us?
Into the end zone, Charger fans are witnesses to history.
The plan. This is what I would do for an entire Chargers offseason blueprint. How the Director would handle the offseason. I photoshopped a new roster for you guys. Some cool visuals to kind of, show what the new team could look like. The Jim Harbaugh 2025 Los Angeles Chargers. Let's freaking do it, man. A lot to cover in this video, so let's get started. Now, the objective. Obviously, you want to make a better football team. Everybody knows that. But on top of that, man, we need to stabilize the defense because we are more or less moving around a lot of pieces, right? There's a lot of free agents, guys that might have to let go, maybe some guys that had to get cut like Joey Bosa, unfortunately. We want to make sure that defense is in some way, shape, or form as good or even better, if possible, than the defense we had last season. The #1 scoring defense in football. We got to double down, make sure that they are stabilized. Then on the offensive side of the football is where things get interesting. This is where it's probably the most important to get it right this offseason. You got to make sure that offense is set up to match the energy and match the success of the defense. Because when you do that, I strongly believe that the Chargers not just become, playoff contenders, but real Super Bowl threats at that point. If you get Justin Herbert some weapons, you get him some, more protection, and then maybe stabilize that running game as well. Get that going, you know what I mean? Then you have yourself a supercharged Super Bowl contender Los Angeles Charger football team that I think would be very awesome. And again, this is a great opportunity to do that because last offseason, Chargers just did not have a lot in the way of resources. No money. We're very much so, stretched thin in cash. Draft capital was okay, but this was kind of the first, attempt at filling a lot of holes and stuff. Joe Ortiz, despite all of those complications, absolutely smashed the offseason. We had to kind of make it way through. We went from a 5-win team to an 11-win team. Now we've got the resources to really double down and find the identity, find the strengths, and really build this Jim Harbaugh, team of the future. So Joe Ortiz as well needs to be credited for this too, man, because this man's been absolutely incredible in his efforts and his success in building a football team for the Bolts. Okay, so now let's get into the money part of things. Now, you guys, as I said, we've got a whole lot more resources to work with this offseason than we did last offseason. The money looks really, really good. Right now, post Joey Bosa release, the Chargers are currently working with $90.69 million. Nice. All right, and that's going to be third most in cap space in the NFL. The Bolts are going to be a very attractive football team for many different free agents looking to get paid, guys that want to be traded to a good contending football team that also are going to have, the pocketbook size to make sure that they're, properly compensated. Very good situation if you're the Chargers as a team. A very good situation if you're a hopeful future Charger, a free agent, a trade guy, to make their entrance with the Bolts. So very good situation all of a sudden for Joe Ortiz and the Los Angeles Chargers, who could even get more money. And that's what we're going to start with. Our first segment here is going to be the cuts, unfortunately. Every single season, you're going to see some big ones. You're going to have to find sacrifices here or there. This year really was Joey Bosa, one of my favorite Chargers ever. Very disappointed. I should say disappointed because we kind of expected it to happen, but it still makes my heart hurt, man. I'm going to be a big Joey Bosa fan till the day I die. Been a big fan of him since he was drafted. Hope that he finds success, hopefully playing with his brother in San Francisco for the later years of his NFL career. But that's not where we're going to stop. The Chargers do need to make a few more cuts, trim up the roster, add a little bit more money in your back pocket, just keep that there in case there's a couple other guys that you want to add to build to the specific identity of a Jim Harbaugh team, and make sure you got the right pieces in here. We're going to start, our first cut's going to be Trey Pipkins, who's going to put back in the pocket of the Chargers $6.75 million. Trey Pipkins, of course, a on-again, off-again Chargers decent offensive lineman. I would say more often than not, maybe more of a not living up to, hopes and dreams at offensive line, especially in terms of value of project. But, he had some decent seasons. The Chargers tried to move him to guard last year. Did not work out. He's definitely being paid way too much for a guard at this point. It's probably time to let him go. It's going to put almost $7 million back in the pocket of the Chargers. And then on top of that, I think I am going to go ahead and cut Gus Edwards. Not that he didn't do a decent job. Gus Edwards actually not a bad piece of the offense last year when available. He was the hammer, to the Chargers. I should say the thunder to the Chargers lightning with J.K. Dobbins. But given this draft class and just how impressive it is, at the position of running back, I have to believe that the Bolts are not going to just make it out maybe with just one running back, which I just want to say, at very minimum, you're going to get a running back in this draft class. But I would say maybe even two, man. It's that good of a class. You want to set yourself up for the future. Not to mention Kamani Vidal, I do believe is going to start climbing in terms of his usage. That probably pushes out a Gus Edwards, which adds another $3.1 million into the pockets of the Chargers, which now gives us a new total in cap space of $100 million. Yes. I know it's a lot of money, and I know there's going to be some people that push back and say, hey, director, let's not get ahead of ourselves, right? This is not effective cap space. We need money for the draft guys and the offseason and all this stuff. Yeah, I understand that. We're going to kind of keep that in account, for when we end the video. We're going to have some money left over for that kind of stuff. Don't have the official numbers on that, but $100 million, folks, is a whole lot of money to work with. And we're going to get started in putting that money to good use by re-signing our guys. The Chargers have a whole crap ton of internal free agents that we're hoping to bring back. Not everyone's going to be able to return, but the Bolts have the capital to really bring in the guys that fit what we were trying to do last year, that earned a second contract, and that want to propel us into the future with this new identity. Let's go ahead and start off with Rashawn Slater, who is currently playing on the fifth-year contract or fifth-year deal. We're going to go ahead and extend him right away. First thing we're doing, and with the money that we've acquired, the $100 million, where we're going to put it, the first thing I'm thinking about is getting Rashawn Slater settled for the next 5 seasons. He's going to sign with us a 5-year, $128 million extension, averaging around $25.5 million a season, making him the highest paid tackle in the NFL. I think that's what it's going to take, if I'm being quite honest with you guys. And I think it's 100% worth it. You want your bookend tackles set for the next Justin Herbert career amount of years. Rashawn Slater is as good as it gets. He's absolutely worth the money. The cap continues to increase every single season. This is the kind of move winning football teams make. Get this man paid. He would be a Charger for the further 5 seasons. And with a cap hit of $19 million this season is definitely not too bad. That actually could get a little lower. mind you. I didn't go through and do meticulous maths to get the numbers exactly where they're going to be, but my guess is going to be probably in the realm of 19 million. Some people could even say that, hey, let's save some money this season to sign more guys, get that down closer to 10 million, very similar to the contract of Christian Darrisaw. But hey, I think that this is definitely a very reasonable thing to think about, and a very reasonable contract, in my opinion, to keep one of the best tackles on your roster for years and years to come. The next move I'm going to make is quite interesting. It's kind of a big deal in terms of, talking points among Chargers fans, and it's one that, in my opinion, if I were in charge of the roster, is almost a no-brainer. I'm bringing back Khalil Mack on a 1-year, $23 million contract. Of course, I think there's $8 million of void money on the Chargers already. Let's go ahead and add to it, making it a nice number of $23 million, which I feel is very appropriate for a Khalil Mack. And that dude, it really speaks and screams what the Chargers are defensively, in my opinion, making this move. If you look at the Chargers last season and you look at the way that they value different positions, edge was a huge one. Defensive line is going to become that, I promise you, this year. With the draft the way it is and some of the free agents we're going to pick up, interior defensive line is a big, big deal. But to me, the Chargers really emphasize having that heat, that hotness, that eliteness at edge. Khalil Mack, I feel, needs to come back for at least one more season to help smooth out the Chargers' transition into the future. Yes, we're talking Tuli Tuipulotu, which is absolutely going to be a very good edge going into the future, but we can have some guys come in, maybe some rookies, maybe some free agents. Who knows? I think we got to make sure that that's settled in for this season to make sure that that part of the defense, which in my opinion was a cornerstone aspect to the defense, it really helped the whole environment work that much better. Make sure you bring him back. I want Khalil Mack on this team for as long as possible. This feels like a very fair deal, and one of the biggest priorities for me is bringing back number 52. The next guy I'm bringing back internally is going to be Poona Ford, who had himself an awesome resurgent season with the Chargers. Want this guy back, brought the heat from the interior, very much so looked like a shade of his former self in Seattle. Want this guy back on the roster for at least 2 seasons. We're going to give him a 2-year, $14 million contract with a cap hit of $6 million in 2025. Poona Ford, very well deserved. Definitely going to be a piece that you want to build on in the interior defensive line. And aside of that, dude, I also want to bring back our guy Tier Tart, man. This is a guy that a lot of chatter, at least on my channel, from me particularly, that I was surprised the Chargers picked up. Of course, he's had his ups and downs in terms of, character issues that maybe helped him bounce around from team to team. Finally lands with the Chargers, straightens him out, sees a lot of success as a guy that rotates in and out from the interior. I want him back on this team as well. Let's hand him a 2-year, $5 million contract with a cap hit in 2025 of $2 million. The next contract we're handing out is going to be one to a very well-deserved player on the offense in J.K. Dobbins. We're going to give him a 2-year, $7 million contract with a cap hit. We're going to front-load it a little bit of $4 million in 2025. J.K. Dobbins, to me, the perfect player to, just like Khalil Mack, help usher in the future. More than likely, you're going to see a rookie running back come from this class to the Chargers. Let's get J.K. Dobbins in there to help smooth out that transition. He can play a really good number 2 role if it really does come down to that, but at very minimum, we know that he works in this offense. I want him back with the team at least another year or 2. Next up, we got a nice special teams player. We cannot forget special teams, and Nick Neiman, who also needs an extension. I'm going to give him a 2-year, $4 million contract with a cap hit of $1.5 million a season. Minor, but also important not to forget. There's a lot of minor players that serve purposes on like special teams and backups that I feel are very important. Nick Neiman is among the top. Very good special teams player. Speaking of backups, Bradley Bozeman's going to make his return. I know there's a lot of Chargers fans that are maybe not as high on Bradley Bozeman. I get it. I would say that the Chargers need a dramatic improvement at the center position sometime in the near future. However, the pickings is slim this year, okay? There's not a whole lot of options if you're going after a new center, and the Chargers got to nail it right now. But for that reason, I'm going to say, the Bolts, let's go ahead and get this guy as your backup center, as a smooth out center. We're going to try some stuff this year. It sounds like Zion Johnson may get some opportunities at center this year. It sounds like maybe we might be going after a guy in the draft as well. Till then, we need some consistency. Let's bring back Bradley Bozeman as a backup role, a 1-year, $2 million contract, nothing crazy, to make sure we do grab that consistency for Justin Herbert. It sounds like he's pretty well loved in the building as well. Then finally, let's bring back our punter, DK Scott. Of course, not his best year this last year, but again, I'm not quite sure as to the environment of signing or drafting punters, so let's make sure to just smooth that out, solve that issue, get him back on with the team this year. DK Scott, 1 year, $2.5 million. This is going to round out the Chargers with a remaining cap space of $68 million going into the next phase. That's still a whole lot of money while still bringing back at very minimum 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 internal free agents. I say that's a pretty good start to your offseason. Next up, we're going to make one of the biggest moves that the Chargers have made in a very long time. I would say since the Khalil Mack trade. We are going after DK freaking Metcalf from the Seattle Seahawks, who just requested a trade just a few days ago. He has been over and over and over again linked to the Chargers. He has a home in Los Angeles, 20 miles away from the Bolt. He's been posting on social media as to, where he went to high school as an Oxford Charger. He's good friends with Dayan Henley. The recruiting's been going on there. There's a lot of people within the organization, within the NFL, that believe DK Metcalf will be headed to LA. I'm going to say that's exactly the move that they should make. Of course, you may hesitate and say, wait, hold on, director. I want to hold on to draft picks. I don't want to pay as much money. Give me a Devontae Adams, which is certainly a really, really good option too. I would very much so be on board with that if that's what the Chargers decide to do. And it's something that could very well happen. If you guys remember in Jim Harbaugh's career, he did sign some older guys to help complement his offense, including a very old Randy Moss at one point with the San Francisco 49ers. It's just kind of something that happens, right? And of course, with Joe Ortiz very much so, valuing his draft picks, I could see the Devontae Adams thing happening. But if it were me, and from what I'm hearing, and from what we're reading, and from we're all speculating, it feels like DK Metcalf is the move. We've not seen Justin Herbert with as explosive of a weapon as DK Metcalf on this offense yet. A lot of us speculated and dreamt about the possibility of a Tyreek Hill type of wide receiver on this offense for a long time, just because Justin Herbert has a very rare arm. He's got that John Elway cannon that we've not really seen fully utilized yet. A signing like DK Metcalf, an explosive player to his caliber, a big playmaker to his caliber, could really show us something that we've never seen before. Justin Herbert with explosive, speedy weapons. And that's, I think, what this team needs right now. We really are hurting at wide receiver. Everybody in the NFL knows this. And the Chargers, who need to bring that, again, offense up to the level of the defense, I think have to make a move like this. DK Metcalf, very good player still. He's been a very consistent, reliable wide receiver one for the entirety of his career, and he brings a new element to this offense that we've not yet seen that would really create an awesome dynamic between him, Justin Herbert, Ladd McConkey, the running game, and then whoever else. He's going to even help elevate guys like Quentin Johnston, maybe a rookie tight end, whatever. Lots of really good upside when you pair DK Metcalf with the Los Angeles Chargers. And because of that, I'm going to go ahead and say he is worth what it's going to cost to get him on this roster. Now, first off, we got to talk compensation draft pick capital-wise. Right? You're going to have to send the Seattle Seahawks something. They have been pushing to get a first and third round pick for DK. That's flat out not happening. That's a pawn shop, negotiation tactic if I've ever heard one. You are not getting a first and a third for DK. However, you can talk me into maybe our second round pick, which is still very valuable, and it feels a little bit more realistic that would be the case. That's the middle ground where everybody can agree. We're even going to throw in a 6th round pick as well. So in exchange for DK Metcalf, I have the Chargers setting a 2025 second round pick number 55, as well as a 2026 2025 6th round pick number 215 this year in exchange for DK Metcalf. Now, it's not over there. Another reason why I don't think you're going to get a first-round pick for DK is because you're going to have to turn around and pay him a lot of money right out of the gate. And that's another thing that the Chargers will have to take care of right away. And I'm going to go ahead and do that in this example right here. Again, getting DK Metcalf in the building, sitting him down, and signing a new contract right away. We're going to extend him a further 3 years. He's still got 1 year on his contract. We're going to extend him by three more years at $88 million with an average of $29 million a season. That's going to keep him on the roster until age 30-ish, another 4 seasons for him. He just turned 27, so that would put him at 30, 31 years old by the time that his contract would expire, and give the Chargers just a very consistent, reliable, threatening wide receiver one to pair up with, Lad McConkey for the further, 4 seasons of him and Justin Herbert. It's going to be absolutely insane, scary for defenses, huge potential for the offense to pop, and honestly, it just makes me so excited as a Chargers fan that this is even a possibility that's being talked about right now. DK Metcalf to the Chargers, it's at all possible. Let's make it happen. That puts the by the way, the cap hit for 2025 would remain at $18 million for DK Metcalf as we adopt some money from his previous contract. And that would keep the Chargers now with a cap remaining of $51 million as we enter the free agency phase of the offseason. So we brought in a whole bunch of our internal free agents. We went and traded for DK Metcalf. I was very, very close in this video making another trade for Mark Andrews. That ultimately I felt was maybe too far-fetched. Joe Ortiz wants his draft picks. I don't think he's going to go swinging at the fences twice in terms of trade. But I can say that DK Metcalf feels like it could be a very strong possibility. Now moving into free agency. I feel like the Chargers, you're going to see a couple of big names. Maybe not as many as we're all expecting with the $100 million. Of course, you're making big moves already with, Rashawn Slater, Khalil Mack, DK Metcalf. Those are already huge moves where $100 million is going to be required. But I do think there's 2 pretty sizable free agents that the Chargers go after in utilizing the remaining $51.4 million remaining on the cap. I'm going to start with a free agent that I don't know if it's getting talked a whole lot about in terms of, a fit with the Chargers. I'm very, very intrigued by the idea of Chase Young sporting powder blue in 2025. I know this kind of maybe came out of left field for a lot of people, but hear me out, man. The potential of Chase Young being a future answer at edge, I feel is very real. And I think it's mainly because of what the defensive coaching has proved to us over the last year, which instills a lot of confidence in an idea like this, an experiment like this. The defensive coordinator and Jesse Minter and those coaches and those guys have really taken some talent that was, for lack of a better term, cast aside in the NFL by guys like Tier Tart, who I want to extend, and Poona Ford, and Marcus May, and Tony Jefferson, and of course Elijah Molden, who was just extended with this team as well. All these guys, and the corners, by the way, the DB is absolutely insane. All these guys found new life on defense with this team. This is where I have the idea that Chase Young could be a very special circumstance for this team, where we not only find an answer for this year to create more pressure, which again, like I stated earlier with Khalil Mack, it's kind of a foundational piece of this defense. You want to make sure that pressure is consistent, lethal, and elite. Chase Young feels like the kind of player that I'm willing to spend up on, the position that I feel the Chargers would be willing to spend up on, and one that, again, in this unique situation, in this unique environment, maybe, just maybe, Jesse Minter and this team unearth that first-round potential that everybody was talking about when he was drafted, that maybe not lived up to from, this point of his career. I think the Chargers can do it. And I think by doing that, by experimenting and trying to find that in Chase Young, you may have your answer post Khalil Mack with Chase Young in free agency this season. Does that make sense? Of course, you're going to see the Chargers linked to other edge players, in the draft. There's some really cool guys coming in this year. Not a bad edge class, but I really do feel strongly that the Bolts uniquely are the team where Chase Young can not only thrive, but find new life and become that star that everybody saw in him when he was drafted. So give me a Chase Young on a 2-year deal, $35 million, $17.5 million cap hit this season. We're going to go ahead and split it in half, and let's see what happens when you pair him up with Khalil Mack, Tuli Tuipulotu. Can he start showing signs of bringing back that lethalness and that title of savagery that he was hopefully going to be known for, right? Can we unearth that in him? And if we do, and if it is successful, and we find that Chase Young is our guy, he's only 25 years old. Let's extend him next year, make sure he's with the team another 4 or 5 years, and boom, there's your answer post Khalil Mack, Chase Young. I love the idea. I might be crazy. Maybe, there's some reasons why he's not a fit, or maybe reasons that we're not as high on him, or you don't want to spend the money there. This is my experiment, and I feel strongly that the Chargers want that edge position locked away, squared away. feel very strongly of their ability to bring, guys that haven't lived up to their potential and make them stars. And I feel very strongly that Chase Young could be a future answer at edge once Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack have moved on from the team. You want to emphasize that position. I think this is a good bet to make in the offseason. All right. The second big player I want to sign is actually one that was recently released, in Evan Ingram. I kind of went back and forth on some guys that I wanted to sign via tight end. I knew that I wanted to make at least one signing because I don't want us to be backed up against the wall saying, hey, there's a guy we love, but maybe in the later rounds there's a Mason Taylor or Harold Fannin or even Colston Loveland. But if there's guys that you feel are graded higher, I don't want you to be boxed in and say, oh, we got to take the tight end, right? We're trying to cover our bases here. And Evan Ingram, to me, is still a talent that I think's worth a shot at this point. He's not going to be the Evan Ingram of, the Giants days even, but he's going to be a very good upgrade in terms of receiving tight end and something to give you stability at the position, even if the draft doesn't go the way you hope. Let's say Jim Harbaugh really has his heart set on Colston Loveland. Guys, I'm here to tell you right now, I'm seeing a lot of drafts where he does not make it to the Chargers. I'm seeing a lot of mocks where he's going to the Broncos. He's going to another team well ahead of 22. And of course, Tyler Warren's also gone. What is the plan there? Well, let's go ahead and square that up by getting Evan Ingram on this team, who's a very good receiving tight end still, right? He's, of course, going to be moving the ball for Justin Herbert, becoming that reliable target, something that he hasn't had in a long time. And let's be honest, this would be his best tight end target that he's had since Hunter Henry. Even if we do get Colston Loveland, even if we do get, one of these nice tight ends in the second or third round even, Evan Ingram is a really nice player to pair up with a rookie to, again, like we said with Khalil Mack, to the edge position, like we said with J.K. Dobbins to the running back position. Smooth out that transition for the young guy to take, the torch at some point and be tight end one. Right now, I feel like Evan Ingram, a good opportunity to add a pretty decent player to the roster that's not going to cost a whole lot. I'm going to give him a 2-year, $12 million contract with a $6 million cap hit this season. Help the Chargers round out that tight end position, whether or not they hit on one in the NFL draft. All right. The next few guys here I think are going to be very fun Ortiz free agents. And what I mean by that is that you saw a lot of guys come from free agency last year that everyone's like, oh, okay, whatever, it's a signing. And then they turn out to be awesome, right? They turn out to be studs and they have some of the best, years that they've had in their career in a long time. A lot of these guys have that same potential with the Chargers this season. And these signings kind of reflect that confidence I have in Joe Ortiz to hand these guys to this coaching staff that has proven over and over again that they're capable of doing that and finding value. So let's get into our first value free agent signing in Nate Hobbs. I'm going to say slot cornerback, formerly of the Raiders. We should all be very familiar with Nate Hobbs' game, right? This is a nasty nickel, cornerback that likes contact, that likes getting involved physically in terms of, tackling and blitzing and operating in that part of the field. It really does feel like Nate Hobbs would be a really nice addition to this team as a rotating nickel, as somebody, who the Chargers can, relieve Tarheeb Still at times, or even line Tarheeb Still on the outside. I feel Nate Hobbs is a really good budget guy that could find some new life with the Chargers. I'm going to give him a 1-year, $4 million contract and move on to our next guy. This one I'm actually kind of excited about. Let's go out and get Jarran Reed, formerly of the Seattle Seahawks. A big reason I love this idea is because we brought back Poona Ford. These guys are buds. These guys are teammates, right? These guys found success with the Seattle Seahawks for years. Let's bring him to the Chargers. Of course, we did not bring back Morgan Fox, which was certainly a hard decision for me in this video. But I think bringing in Jarran Reed, who's got a pre-existing chemistry with Poona Ford, has been pretty decent in his later years. I think it's a good bet to make to keep that interior pressure nice and consistent, at least to the base of what Morgan Fox was bringing, but maybe with a little upside, while pairing him up with Poona Ford. I'm going to give him a 1-year, $6 million contract. Move on to our next guy. Another vet. I'm going to say vet with a capital V. Vet. Definitely up in age, but certainly not down on production. Oh my goodness, Kevin Zeitler. This man had one of the more impressive seasons that you can have at the guard position with the Detroit Lions, running, that really, power scheme in terms of running the football. They had David Montgomery and, of course, Jahmyr Gibbs, all these guys going crazy. Zeitler was absolutely insane in terms of what he provided for blocking of those running backs. I want that. I don't know if the Chargers are going to find their answer in the draft. I don't know if they're going to find, a really expensive, free agent to come in and fill that gap. But I want something there this season. Seeing as we did get rid of Trey Pipkins, Zion Johnson, there's talk of him, kicking into center at some point. Give me Kevin Zeitler to really give us that nice oomph that we need in the interior of that line, at least for this year while we figure it out. I'm going to give Kevin Zeitler a 1-year, $6.25 million contract and feel very good about what he brings to the interior, which needed a lot of attention. Finally, from the interior, I'm going to make an under-the-radar signing of Austin Corbett, formerly of the Carolina Panthers. Director, what are you doing? We just did this. Bradley Bozeman came in. It was more or less disappointing. Why are we signing another, Carolina Panthers center? Well, it's because the upside's there, man. Austin Corbett, very decent interior offensive lineman with the Los Angeles Rams at one point. Saw a bit of a dip of production with the Carolina Panthers, but who didn't in that offense? You know what I mean? But the most intriguing aspect for me with Austin Corbett is the fact that he plays center and guard. I think he shifted from guard to center at some point, found some success at center, and gives the Chargers very valuable maneuverability in the interior of that offensive line, because if they're going to be trying out Zion Johnson, they might as well try out Austin Corbett. They might as well try out, Bradley Bozeman, see what works this offseason. Maybe, just maybe, we get lucky and still find an upgrade at center, even in this barren wasteland of no available upgrades at center via free agency, maybe the draft. It's going to be tough to find an upgrade this offseason. I think Corbett, I think Zion Johnson, and then, of course, Bradley Bozeman, getting all these guys on the roster at least gives us a chance at finding success from the position this year. All right, so that's going to give us a remaining cap of $15.5 million going into the draft. And of course, I apologize, I don't have the numbers for effective cap space, but I'm hoping that's enough for the Chargers to cover the draft, as well as off-season budgets. And then, of course, maybe there's other cut stuff that they can move around. A lot of these contracts can be structured very differently, by the way, too. So if they needed an extra $5-10 million, it would be very easy to accomplish that while still signing all the players from this video, okay? So let's get into maybe the most exciting aspect of this video. It's going to be a long one today, but it's going to be covering the NFL draft. My first mock draft of the offseason. It's only going to be 4 rounds, but 4 very important rounds, especially considering that the Chargers did trade away their second-round pick for DK Metcalf. Very worth it. You're going to get yourself a star wide receiver for the next 4 or 5 years with Justin Herbert. Absolutely not regretting that decision at all. It's going to be amazing, all right? But with that being said, there's still 3 very big picks that the Chargers can make in the Joe Ortiz era that I think will work out very, very well. Now, in round 1, at pick 22, I've got the Los Angeles, brace yourselves, guys, sit down. I got the Los Angeles Chargers selecting Omarion Hampton, running back, North Carolina. Hear me out. I know there's going to be some guys saying, What are you doing, director? What's happening? Well, let's be clear here. The Chargers had a couple options in front of them, in my opinion. At this point with this mock draft, Colson Loveland did not reach us at 22. We had some options, Emeka Egbuka maybe, Matthew, oh my goodness, it's completely blanking me. The wide receiver from from the Longhorns. There's a whole lot of it, okay? A whole lot of possibilities of what we can do at 22. Omarion Hampton, to me, tail end of 22, feels like a difference maker coming out of the draft. Like, you're going to get something out of this guy year 1, almost a transformative kind of player in terms of the offense right away. This is a very, very special running back, one that's maybe being overshadowed by Ashton Genty a little bit, which, let's be clear, he's going to be one of the best running backs we've ever seen. But Omarion Hampton is not that far off either, man. This is a very special running back, big frame, huge speed, huge power, great moves, excellent catching, excellent blocking. Like, this guy's all around going to be a star in the NFL. And what better perfect fit than the Jim Harbaugh Los Angeles Chargers that want to run the football? This could be a huge move for this team, not just for this year, but for years to come, and in really introducing that identity that the Chargers were so desperately trying to figure out last year. This is a running football team, a physical football team. Omarion Hampton is the right call if the Chargers decide to go that way. It would be a home run pick, in my opinion, and it's one that I'm actually pretty passionate about. Because recently, in recent years, yes, it can be a little scary. There's going to be the Todd Gurley's of the world where it's like, hey, they're amazing, but then they fall off. There's going to be, the Leonard Fournette's of the world where it's like, hey, again, like they're kind of good and then they fall off. But then you're going to find the Jahmyr Gibbs. You're going to find the Bijan Robinsons. You're going to find the Saquon Barkleys. I feel very confident that Omarion Hampton is going to be one of those guys that where not only bringing in the talent individually as a player that he is, but also putting him in an environment like the Los Angeles Chargers are providing with the quarterback play and the coaching and now the receivers with DK and Lad McConkey, like it all fits to the point where you're like, oh man, watch this guy eat, dude. Watch him carry the ball X amount of times for 100, 150 yards. Like it's going to be very good eats for the Chargers in terms of running back and running game if they were to get a guy like Omarion Hampton, who individually as a talent, as a football player, is incredible. Not a great season for North Carolina. Drake May gone. Offense, or I should say defenses, knew exactly what they're going to be doing, running the football. And despite all of that, he put up great numbers. He showed great film. He showed great talent, great, mass and size and effort and physicality, everything that you're looking for from a running back. Omarion Hampton is. That's why he's going to be my first round pick in the NFL draft in 2025. Okay, especially, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, if Colston Loveland was there, it would have been a huge internal battle for me. I think ultimately I would go with Colston Loveland, but seeing as he wasn't available, I feel like the biggest impact you're going to get is from that running back position. And seeing as the Chargers do not have a second round pick, as we traded it away to the Seattle Seahawks, it felt like to me, not a bad idea to grab one of the best ones you can in round one, rather than trying to find and hope to get like a Cam Scattaboo or a Devin Neal or somebody in the third round. Omarion Hampton would be a star on this team. So in round 2, the Chargers obviously not going to select anybody. They traded that pick away for DK. In round 3, I've got the Chargers selecting Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green. Yes, we still got the tight end. And yes, not going to be as crazy of an upside in terms of like Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren, but this is still a really good tight end that when you pair up, and this is why we did this, when you pair up with a guy like Evan Ingram, you're going to get something out of the tight end position this year and for years to come. You still got Will Dissly to be your blocking tight end. Let's make sure he's doing that job to the best of his ability. Put him in the position where do what he does best. But then you got receiving tight ends like Harold Fannin Jr. and Evan Ingram to go out there and provide targets for Justin Herbert to move the football. Now, Harold Fannin, I'm going to say, a lot of people scared away by his RAS score. I'm going to say don't worry about it too much. His tape speaks for itself. He's going to be a playmaker. He's going to be a Jordan Reed type player out there, in terms of receiving. He's going to be a very nice target for any quarterback that he ends up going to, any team that he ends up going to. He's a tough tight end, very difficult to take down. He's got decent blocking upside as well as some other guys, maybe not as much. I'm going to say definitely Fannin is no slouch in that department either. This is a really good option in the third round to give yourself some ammunition in the future to hand the torch off from Evan Ingram to Harold Fannin and make sure that tight end position is relevant in this offense going forward. So Harold Fannin Jr., Bowling Green, I'm feeling very good about that pick. And then finally in round 4, I get kind of giddy thinking about this pick to the Chargers, dudes. This is going to be one of my guys. It's going to definitely be one of Jim Harbaugh's guys come April. I'm going to have the Chargers selecting J.J. Pegues, defensive lineman out of Mississippi. I want you guys to go look this dude up, man. This is an absolute beast of a football player, listed as a defensive lineman, but he can play darn near any physical position. Defensive line, he played a lot of fullback, he played a lot of tight end. I think he was a convert from tight end, as a matter of fact. This dude is a football beast, one of the most versatile players I've seen in a while. And what screams Jim Harbaugh more than a defensive lineman that also plays fullback? I think this guy had like 6 or something touchdowns from the fullback position in the last few seasons, man. This guy's an absolute unit. He's 300-something pounds, 325 pounds, 6'2". He ran like a low 5'1" or something like that. Absolutely insanely athletic for his size. He worked out, as a matter of fact, at the combine everywhere. That's kind of where he was on my radar. I was like, who's this guy, defensive lineman, working out at fullback? And then he worked out with the tight ends as well. He ran the 40. For his size, ran a really strong 40. Like, this guy's actually kind of a beast. But think about it this way. You're not only getting a defensive lineman who is a physical monster in the middle, by the way, but you're also getting a fullback. And then maybe, if you got cheeky, a tight end as well. Excellent athlete, dude. This just screams Jim Harbaugh. We want that help in the interior. You're also going to get your fullback to maybe train under Scott Matlock. It just feels like the perfect Chargers pick here in round 4. All right, so that's going to round out this video. You guys let me know what you think. I'm going to go ahead and turn this monitor off right here so you guys can see the full picture here. I decided to Photoshop the roster as to what to expect with all of these moves from left to right on the offensive line. You got Slater, Johnson, Bozeman, Zeitler, and Joe Alt as your starters. You got Austin Corbett and Zion Johnson as your flexes at guard and center, mind you, which is very exciting. I think that whole experiment could maybe work out for the Chargers. And then, of course, at wide receiver, look at the receivers. The weapons change all of the sudden. You got DK Metcalf, Evan Ingram. You got Amarian Hampton at running back, who's a very good receiving running back as well. This whole thing just screams massive upgrade and huge potential in terms of keeping up with the defense next season. Speaking of the defense, let's take a look at what the defense looks like with all these moves, man. At the top, cornerback's going to be interesting. The Chargers definitely proved that they can work with underdeveloped talent, or whatever you want to call it. They can really bring out the best versions of these guys. You got 2 middle rounder guys in Still and Hart that went absolutely ham last year. Let's see what happens with Still, Hobbs, and Hart. I believe that they would be contenders to do this again, to go out there and draft a guy in the middle rounds, see how they do. But if anything, I feel very confident that these guys can hold it down, especially with Nate Hobbs going in and out of the slot. At linebacker, Dan Henley, Junior Colson. I think, guys, Junior Colson, he's going to have a season similar to what Dan Henley had this last season, right? Dan Henley didn't see a whole lot of play his rookie year. I know, a lot of us forgot about him, but then he came and became one of the best, linebackers in football. Junior Colson absolutely has that potential this year. I think they're going to be a nice duo in the middle there. Nick Niemann, Troy Dye behind them. At safety, Alohi Gilman and the recently extended Elijah Molden with Derwin James. Very, very good safety situation for the Chargers. Now at edge, again, very important team, or very important position for this football team. You got Khalil Mack, Tuli Tuipulotu, and I decided to put Chase Young on the line just for visuals here. Chase Young. These guys rotating still feel like a very, very strong trio. Very similar to what we had in Joey Bosa and all these guys as well, man. Feels like a very strong, signature position for this defense, and it remains as lethal as it did last year. Maybe a little lower because obviously Joey Bosa is Joey Bosa, but still, that kind of pedigree feels very real with a signing like Chase Young. I think, again, kind of an under-the-radar signing. Not talked about a lot, but I love the potential there for him to become the next big thing. And then in the interior, outside of Chase, of course, you got Puna Ford, Tier Tart, JJ Pegues. You got Jaron Reed now playing with his former teammate in Puna Ford. Feels like a very, very strong unit there, man. Defense looks very, very strong. Finally, special teams going to look more or less the same. I don't know, man. I feel very, very strong and very, very confident in this whole plan for the offseason. You guys let me know what you think. This video is going to be very, very long, but very fun for me to put together. Very worth the watch and the speculation and the time to dissect all of these moves. Please, guys, as you go back and let me know some of these moves that you agree with, disagree with, some additional moves that you would make. The Chargers theoretically still have $15.5 million to work with. I mean, you could still sign a big player. I know Byron Murphy was a big one that I was kind of struggling on whether or not to bring on, but I feel like the Chargers get a lot of value at the corner position. There's going to be even more released players here in the next 48 hours, as we get going into free agency. It's going to be a very, very interesting weekend, man. So you guys let me know in the comment section what you think about all that. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you enjoyed this video covering your Los Angeles Chargers for the 2025 offseason, please hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. We'll see you next time, and as always, bolt up and stay frosty. Let's get DK Metcalf a contract and a jersey in powder blue, baby. Let's go.